At the bottom of the globe lies a landmass that spans 5.5 million square miles, a barren Arctic wasteland home to some of the most dangerous and unforgiving conditions known to humankind. To this day, it remains shrouded in mystery and a hotbed for conspiracies. Antarctica is the only place on Earth where no single country can claim ownership, where military action is prohibited, and no one is allowed to extract resources. Instead, Antarctica is subject to one of the most interesting treaties to ever be enacted on the planet. The Antarctic Treaty, signed into law on December 1st, 1959 by 12 major world powers, including nations that have historically been at odds, established the continent as a peaceful hub for scientific research. Not only does this represent extremely unusual cooperation from rival nations, it raises a question. Out of all the land in the world, why is this the one place where nations can coexist without slipping into perpetual conquest? And maybe that's not a coincidence, because the same treaty that unites these nations also restricts access, keeping ordinary people out and whatever's there just out of reach. And ever since, the accounts have been impossible to ignore. Structures that shouldn't exist, weapons beyond our known capabilities, and anomalies that challenge reality itself. This is Antarctica. As with any uncharted lands on Earth, early explorers raced to be the first to discover and map Antarctica. Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian explorer, was the first credited with reaching the South Pole in December 1911. Shortly after, in January 1912, British Royal Naval officer Robert Falcon Scott reached the South Pole, but he never made it home. Trapped by a blizzard, consumed by the conditions, neither he nor his crew ever returned. His final words, written as the end approached, "For God's sake, look after our people." Despite the fate of the Terra Nova expedition, others kept going. Among them, Anglo-Irish explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton. He set out to achieve something no one had done before, a full land crossing of Antarctica. But the continent had other plans. His ship, the Endurance, became trapped in drifting ice, held there for nearly 10 months before it was finally crushed. And somehow, against all odds, all 28 men survived. But the mission never did. And true to human nature, failure didn't stop them. If anything, it fueled something deeper, a relentless drive to chart the last unknown on Earth. And that drive would lead to one of the most famous Antarctic expeditions ever recorded, one that still shapes much of the mystery surrounding the continent today. Operation Highjump, led by Richard E. Byrd. Previous expeditions were led by fearless explorers, backed by small, tight-knit teams. But Operation Highjump was something else entirely. For a continent believed to be a barren wasteland, it was hard to ignore. Over 4,700 men, 13 ships, 33 aircraft. In 1946, Richard E. Byrd set out with a force that looked less like an expedition and more like a military operation. Officially, it was meant to test equipment and map the terrain, but for a place with nothing there, why bring so much? It almost felt as if the US military knew something the rest of the world didn't. And the accounts that followed only deepened the mystery, especially those attributed to Richard E. Byrd himself. Writing said to come from his private diary, allegedly hidden for decades after the expedition, before resurfacing decades later in 1996 during archival work at the Byrd Polar Research Center. His diary entries include details that don't feel real. They challenge everything we think we understand about Antarctica, even reality itself. Entries that describe something incredibly unsettling. Saucer-like aircraft rising from the water and attacking the US ships. The first suggestion that this wasn't just an expedition, that something else was out there. And then things get even more otherworldly. On February 19, 1947, Admiral Byrd was on a flight to chart more of the continent when something happened, something he couldn't explain. While flying, he claims he saw it, a massive opening in the landscape, and like any explorer would, he flew straight toward it. What he claims to have seen next didn't match Antarctica at all. According to the diary, beyond the ice was something else entirely. A lush green world hidden beneath the surface, towering crystal-like structures, advanced technology beyond anything known at the time, and beings. Tall, almost human, but not quite. He writes that he was welcomed, brought into their civilization, and given a message from their leader, a warning. one he was meant to bring back to the surface, concern over humanity's use of nuclear weapons, specifically at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and a fear that our pursuit of that power would ultimately lead to our own destruction. Whether Richard E. Byrd ever relayed this message to government officials remains unknown, but if the account is true, one thing is clear: it never reached the public, and whatever he did know died with him. Or at least that's what we've been told. In the decades following Operation Highjump, the intrigue surrounding Antarctica never really faded, but it wasn't until the early 2020s that the claims began to surface again. In June 2023, former Raytheon contractor, firefighter, and plumber Eric Hecker was stationed at the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station, and during his time there, he claims to have had access to something unusual, an advanced piece of technology: the IceCube Neutrino Observatory. On paper, IceCube is purely scientific, a massive particle detector embedded deep within a cubic kilometer of Antarctic ice. Its purpose? To detect subatomic particles known as neutrinos, particles born from some of the most extreme cosmic events in the universe. What makes them unique is their ability to pass through almost anything, solid matter, even entire planets, virtually unaffected. But according to Hecker, that's not the whole story. He claims the detector isn't just receiving signals, it can send them. High-energy transmissions, powerful enough, he says, to function as a directed energy system. He even alleges there were moments where a green beam could be seen projected from the facility into the sky. And if something like that were possible, the implications are hard to ignore, because in theory, a directed energy system of that scale could be used for far more than observation. Focused into an already unstable fault line, that energy could hypothetically trigger seismic activity, something Eric Hecker himself suggested, pointing to a possible connection with the 2011 Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand. Eric Hecker has continued to stand by these claims, repeating them publicly without hesitation. And if even a fraction of it were true, it would raise a much bigger question, not just about Antarctica, but about what we've been told is actually happening there. From UFO activity in the region to hidden worlds beneath the ice to research facilities rumored to house technology far beyond what we understand, the story of Antarctica has become something much bigger than exploration. It's become myth, speculation layered on top of speculation, pushing us to question what's really out there. But for every otherworldly claim, there's another side to the story, a grounded explanation, one that challenges the mystery and forces us to separate what we think we know from what we can actually prove. Starting with Richard E. Byrd, the diary that allegedly describes a hidden world beneath the ice populated by an advanced futuristic civilization wasn't real. The so-called secret diary, the one that fuels so many modern Antarctica conspiracies, is widely considered a fabrication, more in line with mid-20th century science fiction than anything grounded in documented history. A real diary attributed to Byrd was discovered in 1996, but its contents are far less mysterious. Routine entries, notes on navigation, weather, logistics, the kind of details you'd expect from an explorer operating in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And even then, it relates to his earlier expeditions in the Arctic, not Operation Highjump. Then there are the claims from Eric Hecker that a directed energy system is operating out of the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station, but these allegations have been widely challenged. Scientists and even personnel who've worked at the station say the facility simply isn't capable of generating that kind of power. It doesn't emit high-energy beams, and it certainly isn't capable of triggering earthquakes. Experts like Ian Boyd have also weighed in, explaining that the infrastructure required to produce and control a directed energy system at that scale would be massive, impossible to hide even in Antarctica. And when you strip these claims down and actually examine the evidence, the mystery begins to fade. Because at this point, there's no verifiable proof that any of it is real. Not Byrd, not Hecker, but as Carl Sagan once said, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So when you strip away the conspiracies, the secret diaries, the hidden civilizations, what are you left with? A continent that is still largely unexplored. A place so extreme, so isolated that even today vast portions of it remain untouched. Antarctica may not be hiding futuristic civilizations beneath the ice, but that doesn't mean there aren't still mysteries hidden in the ice. While Richard E. Byrd's official records don't describe anything like the stories we've explored, and the more extreme claims like those made by Eric Hecker have been widely challenged by scientists and researchers, that doesn't mean Antarctica is fully understood. Because even among documented expeditions, there are accounts of things behaving unexpectedly. Compasses drifting off course, equipment failing in extreme conditions, and occasional reports of fast-moving objects in the sky, observations that, while potentially explainable, still highlight just how unfamiliar this environment really is. And that's the thing about Antarctica. It doesn't need exaggeration to feel mysterious. It's remote, harsh, and still, in many ways, not fully explored. But there's also another layer to this, because in a place this isolated, in a place where access is limited and information is tightly controlled, those in control ultimately shape what disclosure looks like. And as time goes on, more claims will surface. New theories, new interpretations, each one pushing the boundaries of what we think might be possible. But for now, we're left waiting for evidence that can truly separate fact from fiction. And in the meantime, we're left to wonder. Because there is something about Antarctica, something that continues to spark intrigue and fuel conversation. And maybe one day we'll finally understand what lies beneath it. Or maybe Antarctica will remain exactly what it's always been, the last place on Earth where the unknown still exists.